Okay.
This month's SBE Webxtra is brought to you by Wheatstone, maker of the intelligent IP audio network used by studios around the globe. The AES-67 compatible WheatNet IP intelligent network is the most comprehensive end-to-end studio network system in the world, with a full line of consoles, software apps, IP audio appliances, and third-party add-ons for any studio workflow, size, or purpose. Wheatstone. Well, good afternoon. I'm Kirk Scherer, Member Communications Director of the Society of Broadcast Engineers and the co-host of this month's episode of the SBE Webxtra, the SBE chapter of the web. This is a monthly SBE meeting that's usually held on the third Monday of the month. The SBE is the Association for Broadcast and Multimedia Technology Professionals, with about 5,000 members, mostly in the U.S., but also around the world. The host of today's SBE Webxtra is SBE board member Kirk Harnack, who is also the chair of the SBE Social Networking Committee. Hi, Kirk.
Hey, Chris. Glad to see you, and good to see your favorite pet there behind you. That is a real joy. I know you've been cooped up in the house, and you enjoy your cats anyway. What's that cat's name? Which one is that?
That one is Miko, and I knew he was walking around. There he goes. That's a good pose, buddy. I knew he was wandering around, and sure enough, he decided to say hi right at the most opportune moment. So there we go.
He was watching your shoulder and said, "That looks like it needs a rub or a scratch." Hey, good afternoon, Chris. Thank you for introducing me, and it's good to see you. It's been a month, and we're glad to be here, Chris. I'm just gonna tease today's show, because, you know, as broadcasters, most of us really love these vertical structures made of steel. And, you know, I think they're beautiful on the landscape. So many of our engineer friends think they're beautiful on the landscape. You know, some of the members of the public think they're eyesores. I think they're so wrong, because I love not only the way these things look, but of course what they do. And man, the whole industry has been busy as ever with tower work. And we've got a couple of amazing people on the show today with a bevy of pictures. And that reminds me, if you are listening to this webcast today and you're not watching, but you're listening, please make a note to go back and watch, because we've got some beautiful pictures, some great video for you today, and a couple of amazing people from the heart of the country in Grove, Oklahoma, to tell us about the tower work that you're going to see today. So we're talking about towers, good advice, and pretty pictures. So, Chris, that's my tease.
Very good. Well, before we get into that, we're going to take a moment for the SBE member update for May 18th. The SBE membership year runs from April 1 to March 31, and if you have already renewed your SBE membership, we thank you. If you have not yet renewed, the grace period is about to end, so don't risk losing your member benefits. Renew online today. Just go to sbe.org and click on Renew Membership in the upper right-hand corner of the website. And speaking of membership, the annual SBE membership drive is still in progress. Help your colleagues go, grow, and know by joining the SBE during the drive. For each approved new member application you sponsor, you'll earn $5 off your 2021 membership dues, up to $25. And if you recruit 3 or more regular or associate members or 1 sustaining member, you'll also receive an upgrade to SBE Member Plus for the remainder of 2020 during this membership period. For each person you recruit, you will also receive 1 entry into the prize drawing. In addition to gift cards, logoed items, and even some broadcast equipment, you could also win a trip to the 2020 SBE National Meeting in Syracuse in September. Go to the SBE website and click on the membership drive box for more details. We are gathering responses for the 2020 SBE compensation survey, and we need to hear from you. The link to take the survey is on the SBE website homepage. We need your input to provide the most reliable data to all SBE members, and we're offering an incentive to participate as well. You could win 1 of 4 Amazon gift cards by participating in the survey. So please take a minute and complete the survey today. Also, nominations for individual and chapter SBE awards are now being accepted. Each chapter is once again encouraged to select its own Chapter Engineer of the Year award recipient. Each chapter recipient will then automatically be entered as a candidate for the national SBE Robert W. Flanders Engineer of the Year award. The local selection process can be done electronically, so we hope all chapters will select their own recipient. The SBE National Office provides a plaque to the chapter to recognize its winner. Please select and notify the National Office of your winner by June 15, and for more info on the SBE Awards, go to sbe.org/awards. We have several webinars by SBE on the calendar. On May 21, we present The Business of Next Gen Broadcast. Rick Ducey, Managing Director of BIA Advisory Services, presents. He'll discuss drivers for adoption, how long it will likely take, and how it affects stations and broadcast engineers. On June 4, we present Management Skills for Broadcast Engineers. Chris Tarr, the Group Director of Engineering at Magna Media, will discuss how to effectively deal with non-engineers in the workplace and basic good management practices. And on June 18, we present AOIP Module 4, Audio Codecs for Broadcast Applications. This webinar will cover the foundations of IP audio transport over a LAN or a WAN, and the keys to reliable audio transport for broadcast critical operations. For info on webinars by SBE, go to sbe.org/webinars. Looking a little farther into 2020, the SBE will again present the Leadership Development Course August 4 through 6 in Atlanta. You can learn more and register to attend at sbe.org/LDC. The SBE has presented this course since 1997. Rodney Vandeveer, professor of organizational leadership and supervision at Purdue University, brings more than 30 years of individual and business experience in management positions in human resources, training and development, and manufacturing. Register with the SBE's No Worry Guarantee. If the course has to be canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic, 100% of your paid registration fee will be refunded. Our go, no-go decision will be made no later than July 1. If planning to travel by air to attend the course, we suggest not booking until after July 1st. On the certification side, and I'm almost done, if you want to take an SBE certification exam, here are some dates to know. Local exams will be held at chapters the week of June 5. The application deadline is already passed, so the next local exam opportunity after that is in August. Submit your application by June 12. If a local chapter exam is not convenient for you, private proctoring is available. Contact the SBE National Office for details. More information on SBE certification is available at sbe.org/certification. And that is your SBE member update for May 18, 2020. And thanks, Miko, for the assist.
Chris, on our last webcast last month, we touched briefly on the fact that a lot of chapters are using Zoom or other online meeting software and services to conduct their meetings. And we have two in Nashville, and I've been part of a couple others as well. We're, I think, seeing greater participation in such meetings than maybe a chapter might normally have, everybody getting together for lunch or for dinner. Have you heard anything similar to this?
I've seen very similar. My local chapter, I'm in Kansas City, and my Kansas City chapter has been meeting by Zoom for the last several months. In fact, I ran a few photos in the upcoming Signal, which will be in your mailboxes in about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, with several chapters that submitted photos of their virtual meetings as well. So it's happening all over, and chapters are finding ways to work with presenters to provide almost the same meeting experience, minus obviously the personal interaction of and some of the social banter that can go on behind the scenes. But it's certainly the next best thing, and we encourage chapters to continue meeting that way. It does fully count towards the chapter meeting qualification as far as chapter administration goes. So it certainly is worth it for the chapters to do it, and it's certainly good for the individuals. You earn a recertification point for attending a meeting that way as well.
It can also, actually, you mentioned the social interaction and maybe the meeting after the meeting. I've been part of a couple that have had a pretty good meeting after the meeting on the same web platform. So that can work out pretty well.
Very common.
Well, Chris, your idea for this month's program, I think, is terrific. I love towers. We've had a one previous show where Vinny Lopez talked about tower work that they were doing at their TV station for the ATSC repack. But today we've got Karen Kyman with Precision Precision Communications, and Ron Scalfani, the logistics coordinator for the same company, Precision Communications. Karen and Ron, welcome into the SBE Webxtra. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
We appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to today's meeting.
Well, I'm going to address the elephant in the room right away. Karen, you are a woman. You've had this company for 22 years. What in the world possessed a woman who was previously a school teacher to get in the tower business?
Well, actually, it's been 28 years now. We opened our doors in 1993. And at the time, my husband had previous work for a company called S&G, and it was always his dream to start his own company. And so I got pulled alongside there, and we, was partners clear up until 2013 when he passed away. And we just built an incredible team. A good part of that team is still with us today.
That's cool. And you do have a good team. I've seen your website. You've got sharp people doing all the functions that it normally takes to get a tower company going. I must tell you, you guys have provided us with a lot of pictures, and these are good pictures that are very visually descriptive of important elements of good quality tower work, antenna installation, deinstallation, that kind of thing, removal. So I thought we just spend most of our time looking at these pictures. You tell us what's going on and what we need to learn as we look at these pictures. And I think that's going to be as good as following any kind of a pre-planned course for our show. Would that be okay with you guys?
Sure.
All right. I'm going to ask our producer, Suncast, to jump right into the photo album. We have some videos too, so let's jump right in. Tell us, Ron and Karen, what are we looking at here?
Well, one of the things you mentioned earlier was towers can be pretty. So this was just a beautiful shot one of our guys got while they were taking an antenna down, getting ready for a change out. But our guys just always compliment or comment on some of the beautiful things that they see while they're up on a tower. So it's amazing what our guys work with.
So let me ask a couple questions as we go along. I mean, I've hung around some tower crews, have done some climbing myself, but don't anymore. So why is there a weight at the bottom of that load right there, that antenna?
Okay, that's called an overhaul. Mm-hmm. So if you picture a complete pulley system, you have cable going up the tower and coming back down. When you get that cable all the way at the top of the tower, something has to bring it back down the other side of the pulley.
Of course.
Otherwise, it just free fall. So it's called an overhaul. The guys will also call it a headache ball.
Sure.
And so even though there's a load on the line right now, the antenna itself, the overhaul ball hanging low helps balance that load, and it helps bring the cable down. When they get rid of the antenna, it'll again stabilize the cable as they're making lifts.
Gotcha. And certainly we hope to have some viewers who are perhaps not experienced in towers and what goes on towers. Tell us about the gray dish that's on the side of that tower. It looks like a microwave dish.
Yeah, absolutely correct. That's a microwave dish. We work primarily with TV broadcasters. And so that big antenna is a broadcast style antenna. So high power, high gain. But the towers are normally located well away from the studio, which are usually downtown. So the microwave will link back to the studio. So the studio will have an STL, a studio to transmitter link. Usually there'll also be a accompanying TSL, transmitter to studio link. And that's how they communicate one with the other. Then it goes down from that dish. There's a line going down into the building where the amplifier is. The amplifier or the transmitter is what takes that signal, boosts up the power, puts it all the way back up the transmission line and out the antenna off the top.
Do you happen to know if this antenna that we see, the white multi-section thing, is that being removed or installed in this picture?
It's being removed.
Aha. For a new one, right?
Yes, correct.
All right. Let's Suncast. Let's go on to the next picture, and we'll see what we can learn from it. Oh, that's nice. That looks like a drone or a helicopter shot.
That was a helicopter shot, and this falls into the category of be glad it wasn't you.
Yes.
If you look at this one, and you can also look at the next one, also shows another shot of this. Okay. Same site. This was down in Florida This was in Florida after a hurricane.
It was Hurricane Wilma in 2006.
Oh, I'll use that tired phrase, that will not buff right out.
Yeah.
So now they have an inverted antenna unintentionally.
Wow.
So the entire support lattice bent over with the weight of the hurricane.
So I'm curious on when damage like that happens. Now, my guess would be, is the tower from the top guy wires on down, is it perfectly usable, or did the whole tower have to be replaced?
At that time, we needed to go up and visually inspect everything before we could rig to it for that same question. Is it suitable to continue working with? What we found with our pictures provided through engineering was that the tower itself was still structurally sound. So we went up, removed that antenna backwards. Normally you would have a gin pole up there and remove it. We were able to grab the bottom of it and lower it down. And then we were able to get the rest of that off the top. And that tower is still standing.
Interesting background on this tower. It was in Broward County. And when they built this tower, there were no homes or nothing around the tower itself, at anchor points past, but it quickly developed. And so when this happened, there was many homes and RV parks and things surrounding this tower. And when this happened, it snapped the input, the elbow input to the from the transmission line to the top mount antenna. And it literally went through the roof of a home into someone's bathroom. And fortunately, no one was injured from this event.
So when that buckled over at the top there, it probably pulled on the rigid transmission line, and the first thing to bust was the elbow at the bottom of the tower that would take it from being a vertical feed over to a horizontal feed. Am I picturing that right?
It was the top vertical or top elbow complex system that snapped.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Because there could be several elbows up there as the transmission line had to make its way from the wide tower to the narrower section and then to the bottom of the antenna. So, yes. Wow. Okay. Well, let's move on. That's pretty.
This style of tower is called a T-bar. So you have a normal straight tower. You have a candelabra is probably the next most common, where it has like 3 arms on there.
Yeah.
This one, though, there's a handful of T-bars out there. So for a T-bar, instead of using a normal straight up and down gin pole, we have a gin pole with a cantilever top section. And that allows us to reach over to the T and change the antenna out on the arm while being rigged to the center mast tower.
Gotcha.
And I think an interesting point here would, for your audience to understand, the weight of these antennas can, range anywhere from 6,000, 8,000, 10,000 pounds. So you might not necessarily guess that just by looking at those antennas, but those are some of the weights that we're dealing with when we remove and we replace antennas.
I think on a previous show we saw what amounted to a piece of tower that would provide extra weight and some height when a previous antenna was removed and a new antenna was going on, and they needed for that side to be roughly the same weight that it had been with a previous antenna. So it got some extra steel up there that wasn't part of the antenna. That's fascinating. Let's move on to the next picture. All right, what do we see here?
So here we see a tower section being stacked. You were talking about pieces being added. So this is the top is being changed out for another top section so that the antenna will fit properly.
Oh, is it an illusion here? Is this 2 towers next to each other, or is it just 1 tower and I'm just looking at it funny?
It's 1 tower. This piece that looks like a tower is actually coming down.
Yeah, I'm at the main.
And then there's a gin pole on the tower.
Gotcha. Okay.
The gin pole looks like a small tower.
But I think maybe some of
think
all
you've
the
seen this one.
wires too, all the guy wires, makes it look somewhat.
Gotcha. All right. Let's take a look at the next one. Ah, okay. What's going on here? That obviously there's a heavy duty gin pole there.
Absolutely. And so this is, again, when you're changing or adding tower, this is adding tower now. So this section is being pushed, swiveled into place. It came up alongside the gin pole. Now it'll swivel into place and be put on top of the tower, secured in. Then the gin pole can jump up and keep that same leapfrog action going.
You know, with all this repack that's been going on, there's been plenty of decisions made. Do we do our antenna work with a gin pole, or do we do it with a helicopter snatch? And so I'd like to, if not right now, we do have some video and pictures later on in the show of helicopter operations. So I'd like to, at some point, make sure we address how that decision gets made. Obviously, this tower, the decision was made to use a gin pole. I'm sure that takes more time to get the gin pole rigged and things moved up and down the tower that way.
Time is a constraint, but when you're erecting a tower, it makes sense to use a gin pole. For the helicopter, you'd have so many Pics that it would become cost prohibitive.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Stacking the tower with a gin pole is pretty standard.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But swapping an antenna out, then you may have that decision to make.
Exactly. That's when you're going to see it more, is with that. Some towers have been stacked with a helicopter in poor site conditions. So we have seen some, but usually not the really, really tall ones that are in an open field.
When you're stacking tower, as we see here, how high will you go up until the next set of guy wires gets placed? And do you ever use temporary guy wires to hold a section in place temporarily?
Yes, we do use temp wires as we're stacking. And so a lot of thought goes into that before you start stacking on a new set of guy levels, depending on how far you can get, what the weather forecast is. And so a lot of that just is a very complicated process. It takes a lot of steps and thinking it through and using temp wires before you get to that next section.
Gotcha.
And usually that is already, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Usually that is predefined by the manufacturer or the engineer of record. So they look at it structurally and say, okay, this span is only this big. Sometimes we don't need a temp wire. But a professional engineer says that, not me.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, all these towers, when you put a tower up, it has been designed and then approved and gotten all the stamps of approval from registered professional engineers who design such things for safety.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. Does your tower company fabricate your own towers?
No, we're a service provider. We don't do any fabrication ourselves.
Okay. Do you have any advice? And I don't know what you can say, what you can't say. There are some tower companies out there. I've dealt with a few who fabricate their own towers, and they may be using designs that may be decades old. Maybe they've been updated for new for new guidelines and new rules. Do you have any thoughts about tower companies that fabricate their own towers and put them up versus a company like yours that is a service provider that puts up other people's towers?
With any product, it's going to be, do your research. There's a lot of companies that we have worked with. We've assembled a lot for a lot of companies. Some of them have slight variations of design, but making sure that the engineering is there, making sure it's good engineering. For us, a lot of times we know certain companies, their steel fits better. So there's some towers we prefer just because they work. As opposed to, like you're saying, some of the ones that might be a little bit smaller, not have that. So fit is always a good thing. After that, it's just like you would anything else. Talk to people that own them. Find out. Go ahead and get references and make sure that you're dealing with somebody that has already been proven to provide a good product.
So let's get back in the pictures. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Karen. Go ahead.
No, just interesting enough, too. There's really not a lot of tall towers going up, but of course there are numerous smaller towers for the wireless industry. So, but a lot of tall towers, we don't see as much of them going up.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot, and you're right. There's a lot of tall towers already up. I'm sure they need service and these antenna change outs. And we've got the next set of pictures we've got. There's a lot of plumbing going on. I've not seen so much copper in quite a while. Let's take a look at some of these.
Yeah.
What is this? What is going on?
This is also into the category of be glad it didn't happen to you.
Uh-huh.
There was a burnout, a massive burnout in some transmission line. And so the transmission line we deal with, again, for broadcast is fairly large. So I believe this was 7-inch line, but it's coaxial. So there's an outer copper and an inner copper. But if you'll scroll through the next couple pictures are all of this same burnout.
Yeah, there's only supposed to be one inner, not 6 inners. Oh my goodness.
Exactly. When our guys were working on this, they went all the way up to the top and started cleaning line and they said, there's no inner in there. What do you mean there's no inner? It had to have an inner. And they worked down 200 or 300 feet before they started finding inners. So the burn was so catastrophic that the Teflons, which normally will keep the inners inside each section where it belongs, they had completely given way, and all those inners freight trained on top of each other down at the bottom 600 foot of the tower.
Oh,
and so we had
freight.
literally,
Wow. They freight trained or
1,800 foot tower.
Correct. So we had to cut the inners out to get it apart to even start cleaning the line. We had never seen anything like that.
Were you able to reuse the line after this?
Some of it, yes, actually. They were able to clean some of it. The places where there was a lot of them crammed into each other, they actually impacted the outer. So some of the outer was bad. But we ended up replacing about 500 foot of outer. But other than that, we were able to put inners in and keep going on the higher ends of the tower.
I almost can't imagine what would be in the mind of a tower rigger when he opens that up and sees 6, 7 inners in there, thinking that's not supposed to look like that. There's supposed to be one pipe in there.
He was actually relieved again because he had seen so much line without any inners. He couldn't believe. It's like, no, it had to have an inner. It's not waveguide.
Oh my gosh.
We didn't send video of it, but we actually had video when they opened it up and finally found there was massive amount of soot and stuff. It looked almost like a smoke coming out of the top, and it was a lot of the soot and the ashes coming out.
Wow. All right, let's take a look.
So I've heard of people opening a transmission line at the bottom of a tower and water just pours out like a pipe, a drain, a faucet. I've never heard of opening a transmission line and inner sections start falling out. That's a new one for me.
How crazy. All right. We got a lot more pictures. Let's move along. What's next? Oh, what's going on here? Welding the tower.
Yeah, there was some welding done. Every once in a while, that's required on a tower. So trying to find people that, one, can climb a tower, two, can be certified to weld. But a lot of times, especially right now with the repack going on, there's been reinforcements that specifically require welding, caps on towers, things like that to strengthen. I believe this was a patch, however. There was a bad spot in the pipe leg that was found. And so that was capped over and patched. So this was actually a maintenance job.
That would scare me to weld on a leg that is a load-bearing leg. I'm sure you guys know what you're doing, but phew, that's scary.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, what's next? Oh, I love that view. What's going on here? There's a bat wing.
Yes.
Wow.
So just a neat view from what the guys would see during a project. And I believe we were taking a batwing down, getting ready to put up another antenna. The batwing antennas were very stable. They've been around for years and years, but they only have horizontal polarization. So for the new demands of viewership, being able to get inside of buildings, especially mobile, there's got to be some vertical polarization as well. So a lot of the batwings have been replaced with antennas that had at least some vertical polarization, if not circular polarization.
Wow. That's a great shot. What's next?
Yeah.
Some of our antennas are larger, and like what you were talking about, making sure that things remain the same height. So our guys right there are working at what's called a wedding cake section. The two plates that are suspended between those tall 3-foot long pipes, they're actually solid round steel members. They'll call that a wedding cake. And so that adapts one antenna to another antenna. So it doubles the amount of vertical real estate you can have on top of a tower. Instead of one broadcast antenna, you can have two.
Yeah. And I believe in this picture, what you're seeing below there is literally, a lot of times you'll just have a dummy, what we call a dummy pole manufactured, and just to provide that extra height. And then the main antenna would set on top of the wedding cake assembly that you see there on up.
So in this picture, the pipe that's below their feet, do you think that's a dummy antenna or is that a real antenna?
I believe that's an old antenna that got stripped.
Ah, okay.
Because of all the slots in it, I believe it was that was a slotted antenna that was stripped and it's no longer in use. And so it was just, now it has become a dummy pole.
Now, in this case, perhaps the feed line was going up through the dummy pole. But if that had been a real antenna and you're stacking one antenna on top of another, and I've seen that. I've seen that with my drone photography. Where would the feed line be for the upper antenna? Would it be also up the middle, or would it come up the side of an existing, or the outside of a lower antenna?
That goes back to design. I've seen it both ways. So they can design it where it goes in the middle, or they can design it where it's outside. If it's outside, the problem is you don't want it to impede the signal or the waveform of what you're trying to present. So being out on the outside sometimes presents a challenge unless it's a directional antenna.
Gotcha. Well, let's see what's next. We've got some more climbers up there with the gin pole. So they must be working out on an arm on one of those, candelabra or T-top antennas.
Exactly. So this is a candelabra. In the near side, you can see our tower crane, which is another type of equipment that's used. The tower crane gets stacked on the center tower section to where it can reach over and grab the antennas on the far ends. And then the guys are reaching.
How do you get the tower crane up there?
With the gin pole.
Yeah.
Well, gee. Wow.
So you still use the gin pole, but then you also, because the tower crane isn't that tall, a lot of times we have to stack false works, sections and sections of tower. In Iowa, we used 80 foot of false tower sections, then put our crane on top of it so that we had the headroom to change out the stacked antennas.
Oh my goodness. That's crazy. Man. All right. Oh, is that crane? Is it, does it have an engine that runs it?
Yeah. It's got its own power unit. Absolutely.
Okay.
And its own operator. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And fueling it. How do you probably don't use a lot of fuel up there, do you?
Not a ton, but you still have to put your OSHA-approved gas cans in the pan and fuel the thing up every day.
Oh my goodness. Wow. All right. Oh, and there it is, right? Same thing?
Yes, sir. Yes. So in the foreground, you can see the top of the gin pole. It's already been lowered out of the way, but that the yellow with the green on top is the gin pole. Then you have the false work sections. Everything above there is tower crane.
Wow.
I think fully assembled, it's about 45,000 pounds.
Oh, gee. Oh, my goodness. All right, what's next? These are such great pictures. So there's stuff that we would never get to see from the ground, at least not like this. So it's very few people see these things as up close as we're seeing them.
Yeah. And so here's a shot of just what goes into rigging on a gin pole. Some of the cables are 7/8 up to over an inch cables just to hold the gin poles up to support the weight loads that we're talking about. So I think one of your questions earlier on was about small projects, big projects. These definitely count as big projects.
Wow. Let's look at a couple more pictures, then we're going to take a quick break. So what's next?
Yeah, just a new antenna that we're taking up and getting ready to set on top of the tower.
You'll notice that some of the orange is missing on that antenna.
Yeah.
They leave some of the radomes off so that we have picking points on the antenna. Then once it gets in place, then we put the radomes on, and the radomes complete its waterproofing, weatherproofing. But there has to be a way to grab hold of it.
If we could go back just one picture for a sec, Suncast, those bolts, those long bolts coming out look like stepladder bolts, footholds. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And then at the top there where you have a whole lot of bolts all the way around that circle, I mean, I can imagine being the foreman saying, "Now, Joe, are you sure you tightened all those nuts down?"
And that absolutely is a process, making sure all bolts are tightened before we finish the project.
Right.
And
if
flex
two are
cable-
good,
Yeah.
if 2 are good, 4 are better. 8 is even more. 16, no, 32. Just keep going.
And that flex cable that is going around those flat round sections, that looks like for tower lighting.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Looks like, yeah. Okay, cool. All right, next picture. Whoa, what a great shot.
It's beautiful.
So again, the guys are working out on the arm of one of the candelabras. This one, like you were talking about earlier, has a small pedestal for height. Then it has the adapter wedding cake, and then we're prepping it to put the antenna onto.
Gotcha. What a great show.
So
Was
look at that
this picture
fantastic
taken?
view that the guys have.
Yeah. Well, do you know where this was?
Was that West Virginia?
Yeah, I believe it was
I think it was West Virginia.
Looks that's
And
very
I think
believable.
this
Certainly could be.
particular tower was with a helicopter. I think that we used a helicopter to set this antenna.
Yeah. Wow. Folks, you are watching or listening, and I hope you're watching because we got great pictures here, to the SBE WEBxtra. I'm Kirk Harnack, along with Chris Scherer is here. Karen Kyman of Precision Communications, and Ron Scalfani is here too. He's with Precision Communications. We're taking good up-close looks at tower antenna change out, tower construction, and getting our questions answered along the way as they come up. We're going to take a quick break. Chris, why don't you take us into that, and we'll be back with just a minute. We have some helicopter video and more coming up.
Sure. The SBE WEBxtra is made possible by the generous support of our sponsor, Wheatstone, and the SBE WEBxtra will be right back.
Hi, I'm Jay with Wheatstone Corporation, and if you've ever purchased a networked audio system from Wheatstone, whether it's the bridge and generation control services or WheatNet IP, we have a remote application to serve your needs. If you have LX24, an E1, or an E6, you're going to use Glass C. If you have an LXE or Glass LXE, you're going to use an application like this, which we call Remote LXE, giving you full control. If you have motorized faders, we'll give you that. We'll give you bus assigns, channel on off, and it looks familiar just like the jocks are used to seeing in the studio. For the entry-level WheatNet IP users, we've got Remix. This has been a popular application that gives you remote control of any of the utility mixers found in the blades. Really handy for codec and just remote operation. For the generation users, we've developed screen builder apps for bus assigns, channel on off, and remote control. If you got any questions at all, please get in touch with the folks at Wheatstone.
And once again, we want to thank Wheatstone for supporting the SBE WEBxtra. And by watching this webcast, you earned 1/2 of an SBE recertification point in category G when you recertify. So now let's get back to talking about towers with Kirk and Karen and I'm sorry, I'm overwhelmed by the picture still, and Ron. So
I think,
sorry.
yeah, Ron's here too. This is so cool. I'm a very visual person, so having a show with lots of pictures to me this is just eye candy, and I'm glad to learn about what I'm looking at. So that's really helpful. I'm Kirk Harnack. Karen Kyman is here, and Ron Scalfani is here too. So Karen and Ron, I want to welcome you back for the second half of the show. We're going to continue on by looking at. Looks like the next picture has to do with a gin pole pick. You tell me what's going on in this next picture. What is that?
Yeah, that's getting the gin pole actually installed onto the tower. So this is the bottom section of a gin pole. So all the things laid out, they'll put the bottom section in, secure it, and then start adding the other pieces on top and assembling it on side of the tower.
There's a contraption over on the right-hand side of this picture, and I'm going to take a guess that that's a winch. You tell me.
That's correct. It's the winch that we use for making the gym pole lifts. Yes, for material.
Do winches have to be heavier than whatever they're picking up?
Yes.
Okay.
If the winch is not heavy enough, what we've done in the past is anchor them, sometimes to something permanent. If there's a huge tree in our way, we'll just anchor to that. Other times we've actually had to dig a dead man pier. So we'll pour concrete and tether up cable to support weight on the bottom of the hoist so that when we make these heavy picks, it doesn't pick the winch up.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow. All right, next picture.
So that shows the pole installed and then installing the antenna next to it. So all of that yellow is actually gin pole, not tower. We're way above the tower top at this point.
Yeah. And there's what do you call the footholds? Rungs or something else?
The climbing pegs? Is that
climbing pegs? There you go. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, those are step pegs. And if you talk to any of the guys that climb, they'll tell you step pegs are the worst.
Yeah. Hurt your feet?
Well, there's not much to hold on to. They're staggered, so you cannot put both feet at the same elevation at the same time. And if you put a hook over it, if anything happened, it could slide off the far end.
Yeah.
So they're just not that safe. We like the step bolts with a safety loop in them or some other device. Or, of course, in a tower, you have an actual ladder. But on an antenna, most of the time, that's what the guys deal with are step bolts. And so every time that top light has to be maintained, whether changing a bulb or whatever, then it's a climb at night on these, making sure, and there's, as you can see, there's nothing to grab hold of up there. So for us, safety is the biggest thing about tower work. And that's one of the things we hate is antennas.
Yeah.
Climbing antennas, it's got to be done, but trying to do so safely. So our guys have come up with all kinds of things to be safe while doing that. Most of the time they're using lanyards and tying off to each one of those one at a time so that it doesn't slide off the end and they're always secure as they ascend the antenna.
And these step bolts here look pretty solid, but in the past we've had a lot where they were just basically, what would you say, Ron, fiberglass type pegs, so that literally break. And so it's really hats off to these workers that do this type of work and can climb these antennas, being 1,800 foot in the air. And just not for changing a light, if there's a problem within the antenna. Those slot covers you see there, a lot of times, we have to go up there and change those slot covers out or open them up to try to identify a problem.
Wow. Next picture is a dizzying height. Oh, I love that. Oh, what's going on here?
Again, another view of an antenna being set, but this is what the workers see. They're on the gin pole, watching the antenna come up, getting ready to swing it. If you look down straight below his feet, you'll see the top of the tower and the bolt pattern that they're going to mate up to. So the antenna comes up beside the tower, swings over into position, and then gets lowered into place and then bolted up.
How often does it happen when the bolt patterns don't precisely match up and you got a swage of a hole out or something like that?
That's actually happened.
Yeah.
That's never a fun thing, but it has happened.
Yeah.
Usually, if the antenna manufacturer is involved in the production of the plate, you're fine. It's on some of the repack jobs we've had, there's been inadequate prints available. And so sometimes what people square off to are different, whether it's in the middle of the face of the tower or slightly inside because of a gusset plate. But we have had to work around that. We have done boring reaming on the top of a 1,000-foot tower before, trying to make sure that the bolts align and still have plenty of meat for the bolts to grab hold of.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting as we're talking about this, that is the amount of engineering that goes into all of this is amazing. And anything that we do like this, it's first went through a structural engineer, and then we carry out the work. So in a situation like we don't have a top plate match up, it's back to engineering.
Oh, man. And somebody gets their hand slapped for the day. They don't get the gold star. Hey, Ron and Karen, how close would you park your car to this job?
I've parked right underneath the tower before.
You're a brave man. Or good. Oh my goodness. I just can see a dropped bolt or a dropped radio. I think I've dropped several radios in my life. Yeah. People are never happy about that. All right, let's see what's next. Oh, is this a video here? Let's see if yeah, there we go. What's going on in this video?
Okay, you were asking before about that weight hanging below. That is actually one of those overhaul balls.
Okay. That was like a fiberglass peg. Yeah. Yeah,
so
that's a metal peg. Okay.
Yeah, that one is a fiberglass peg. The ones above are steel.
Yeah.
But what he's doing is he's tying all the cables together so that nothing blows around up there. And that's got a jumping square on it. So he is actually attaching the pole to that mast so he can keep going up higher. And they're going to take half of the antenna off at a time.
Okay. All right. I think we're back to the beginning on that. Let's see what's next. Oh, there's a pretty tower with a big gin pole. All right. What's happening here?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. It just shows the gym pole, I think, top there, and gives you a little bit better full picture from a view back looking at it.
So often I see towers with television antennas on them situated very similar to this. So you've got the couple of the big dog TV stations on the very top, and then you'll have your CW affiliate or something like that over on lower on the tower on the side. Not as prestigious a location. Is that what you guys find, or do you not really worry about which channel is where?
Yeah. Well, many times it could be an FM antenna, or basically a standby. We call them standby antennas. So if their main antenna goes off, they can, keep broadcasting. But definitely on the bigger towers with the candelabras, when you're dealing with multiple tenants, it definitely gets very complex. And that to me almost looks like a standby, doesn't it to you, Ron?
It could be either.
Or an FM.
The other thing we see a lot is depending on if the tower is owned by the station and it shares with like a sister station, or if it's owned by a real estate company like ATC, for example. On an ATC tower, you might have 6 tower antennas on there. They'll load them up as much as they can.
The white blob that's above what looks to be the standby antenna, that white big can up there looks like an ENG receive antenna. So it could receive from TV trucks that are out gathering news. Would you think so?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Okay. Cool.
The antenna inside of the ENG can pivot 360 so that anywhere the truck drives, it can shoot a signal back to the tower.
Well, here I see a tower on the left with some FMs on it, definitely, and a microwave, but the helicopter is the focus of our view here. What's happening here?
And here we're getting ready to put up an antenna with a helicopter. So you had asked earlier about when would you use a helicopter, when would you use a gin pole? On this particular site, there were several little towers, but it was up on a mountaintop. So it was very, very dense site, hard to get equipment up and down, hard to get a hoist large enough to use a gin pole in place, very little room for a tag alley for a hoist. And then the weights were light enough that a helicopter was cost feasible. So this one, we used a helicopter just because it worked in this situation.
Yeah. And in some situations, when a helicopter could be required is if engineering's been run on the tower and because of the loading, it may not pass with our gym pole on it. And so really your only other option then is to do it with a helicopter.
Yeah, so the gin pole's got to be really sturdy, and of course that makes it heavy, and that's even though it's on to the tower only temporarily, well, the tower has to hold it, and if a storm came along, it's got to put up with that wind loading of the gin pole as well.
Exactly.
Wow.
And,
right,
and here
next?
again, it shows you how crucial engineering is with what we do.
Yeah. All right, next. Oh, this is this is not a mountainside here. What do we have?
I believe this is an AM array.
Well, it looks like
So
it's a
AM
mixed site. It has some AM and maybe some TV on it as well.
I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good looking site. Let's go on to the next picture. We got to move along here. And we have video here. This will start. All right, what's going on here?
So here they're getting ready to take an antenna down. So the helicopter was trying to get into position. They were going to hook up to it. And I think that's it. I think it's a short clip.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll move on then.
Another helicopter shot, getting ready to lift an antenna off the ground to take to the site. On this one, again, because the hillside was so remote, they actually flew over the hillside and went to the studio, which was a couple miles away. And that's where they had to stage the antennas.
Yeah.
So the site was just so horrible.
Sure. Yeah, in our last show where we talked about this, Vinny Lopez mentioned the same thing, that there wasn't a good landing spot. There wasn't a good spot to stage everything at the transmitter side. So they staged it off in a parking lot somewhere else. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. All right. What's next? Here's a video about to play. There's a pretty candelabra there in the distance. Aha. That's how that goes up.
And this is a dummy pole here.
Okay.
Yeah, that one has no RF capabilities at all. And so normally an antenna, they would have lifted the bottom end as they lifted the top end, called tailing it.
Mm-hmm.
This one, they simply picked it straight up because it was steel. It was solid steel up and down.
Yeah.
And so the helicopter's got it, and it's taken it to go put it up.
Yeah, and that dummy pole, you can see too, it had the open, it was hollow. So obviously, yes, all the line would go inside of it up to the next antenna.
I wonder if on the ground there we saw early in the clip, there's another antenna laying on the ground. It's painted red. I wonder if that's going to go on top of that. There it is on the right-hand side. I wonder if that's going to go on top of the lift they're doing now.
Yes, correct.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one. Oh, there's the helicopter up close. Yeah.
Sometimes everything looks small when you see it 1,000 foot in the air, 1,500 foot in the air, and to see how big these helicopters are to be able to make these lifts is just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've seen a lot of the.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, we've seen a lot of the sky crane type of helicopters, that have no body. They look like a big insect. Now this one has a big fuselage to hold people. Not that they would hold too many people on a lift.
Yeah, not while they're lifting, but yes, this one is a little bit more versatile. We worked with one company. I don't know if we have a good shot of it or not, but they actually had baffles for their fuel to where they could say, okay, how long do we think we're going to be in the air? How much weight are we lifting? And they'll take some of the baffles of fuel off and only take exactly what they need for that lift. And so they can maximize the weight that they can pick.
Oh, wow. And I noticed that I'm sorry, Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, interesting enough, this was just in New York, just in April, this project here. So it was very recent.
On the right-hand pilot's position, you can see that the plexiglass is bubbled out so that the person in that position can actually, kind of stick their head out the window without being out the window. They can get a better view, straight down that way than they could if they just had a, regular flat window there. All right, let's move on to what's next. Some advertising.
Yeah.
All right, good deal. What's next? I see something in the air up there above the second platform.
Yeah, I believe that was our personnel pan. So we were simply working on this tower.
Mm-hmm.
But it shows some of the scope. You see some of the platforms. So this one has a lot more ancillary equipment besides the broadcast. A lot of times those platforms will have your cellular work or two-way things. We've done work for like County Sheriff's Department, FBI, people with a lot of two-way needs up at some of these elevations, 911, and then all the dishes just to link everything together.
Now you called that a personnel platform. You mean there's people on that platform?
The yellow pan, yes, sir.
Okay, so how many people might ride up at the same time?
3 or 4. It depends on the size of the pan and its limits. Okay. Again, everything's engineered for safety.
Now,
I think it also depends on how well they like each other.
Well, I guarantee you, no matter how well they like each other, they'll take a free ride any day.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's true. Suddenly you're my best friend.
Yeah. Now, see, what you do is in the morning, you carry them up with the personnel lift there, and then you see how well they work. If anybody's misbehaved, you make them climb down.
They could do it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. All right, what's next?
The next one, we have another antenna coming down.
Mm-hmm.
And so this, again, was one of the bat wings that they're just not, because they don't have any vertical polarization in their signal pattern, they're just not as used anymore as they used to be.
Right. And we got a close-up view of the bat wing next, I think. Oh, no, sorry.
So,
what's this one?
So that's the inside of that personnel pan.
Oh, okay.
So the guys are inside taking a picture. So that's an elevator ride to work, basically.
It's not exactly luxurious, but it's better than climbing.
It's way better than climbing and a lot fresher air than in an elevator.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
You got to bring your own music.
All right. What's next? Another
Just
view out.
Beautiful view there.
So we're looking at part of the gin pole is there because it's yellow.
And then it showed some of the rigging. And then again, just at the heights, what everything looks like. So there's that personnel pan parked up inside the tower. You see the rigging around the tower leg.
Uh-huh.
So that's a normal day at work, a normal day at the office. You can see the curvature of the earth from up there. So none of our guys are flat earthers.
Are there is the personnel pan carried up by the same rigging that carries up antenna parts and sections?
Generally, if we have a gin pull on site, we will have 2 hoists. One hoist for our guys and the pan, another hoist for the gin pole. Usually there's 3 drums. load line, jump line, and tag line for the gin pole.
Mm-hmm.
For our guys, there's always the load line and a tag line. And so normally our guys will always have a double drum hoist.
Yeah, that's
Tell me about those.
man-rated.
Okay. To tell you, why don't we go on to the next picture, and then we'll talk about those different kinds of lines. Obviously, the load line is the one that's carrying all the weight of whatever you're lifting up or setting back down. And tell me about the other two kinds of line, the tag line, and what was the other one?
Okay, the tag line is what prevents that antenna from smacking into the tower.
Okay.
So the tag line will pull just a little bit away from the tower and keep the load balanced, not too far away, but not allowed to swing into the tower.
So on a long antenna like that one, where will you attach the tag line? To the top of the load, the bottom of the load, or somewhere in the middle?
What we use is a trolley tag. So our tag line is actually up at the top of the tower, and then it's on a block on the load itself. And so as we pull tighter, it makes that V shape stronger and it pulls it away from the tower. If you relax it, it'll let it go towards the tower.
Okay.
But by having a trolley, we're not putting the weight of our cable on the load, which would increase your load, which decreases the amount of load you can lift.
Oh, that makes sense, because I've done small towers. You tie the tag line to the load itself, but yes, indeed, the weight of the tag line adds to, the overall weight that's being picked up or down. Okay, so that tag line, yeah.
So that's called a straight tag, what you just described.
Okay.
And for smaller towers, straight tag is great. For larger towers, and especially for heavy lifts, we need to maximize our lift, so we go to a trolley tag.
And then what was the third kind of line you mentioned?
The third is only when we're using a gin pole, and that's a jumping line. So there is a cable that's actually woven into a 4-part, and it's on the tower and on the bottom of the gin pole. And so when they want to jump the pole higher, then they will relax the load line, disconnect everything. Everything will be in the track as far as lateral support, and the jump line will be increased. Then that moves the gin pole up. Then they resecure everything. They pull the track higher, which stretches that jump line back out and positions it to jump again. So there's one drum that's just controlling the height on the tower.
One drum. Yeah, earlier I thought you said drone, but you said drum. So are there 3 different drums typically on the winch?
Yes, when we're talking about hoist for normally we have 2 drums, a tag and a load line. For a gin pole, we'll have 3 drums, 3 winches on one unit called a hoist. Main line or load line, main line, tag line, and jump line.
And those winches themselves probably weigh anywhere from 38 to 45,000 pounds.
Whew, my goodness, that's crazy. How much is the weight of the cable? If you're picking a load that's 6,000 pounds, how much steel cable is it from the winch drum, to the? Is there always a pulley at the bottom of the tower, or does this line go straight up to the top of the gin pole?
Normally, we put a block at the base of the tower as well called a heel block. So it's there at the heel, so that transfers the load straight up the tower. Okay.
All right.
And then the cable is weight per foot. So if we're using 3/4 cable, I believe it is close to a pound a foot.
Okay. So, wow, you could easily found 1,000 foot. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about overhaul earlier. So if you have 1,000 pounds of line, you have to have at least 1,000-pound headache ball. So your cable has to be strong enough to support its own weight, a headache ball, and then the load you want to pick up.
Oh, gee. All right, we got two more pictures, and one of them is a close-up of the Batwing we were looking at. Let's take a quick look at that close-up. There's the headache ball, if you will, on there.
So they secured it right to the load to bring it down and keep it controlled.
Yeah. Wow. I'm sure a lot of TV pictures, maybe the Ed Sullivan Show went through that antenna. Lots of Star Trek episodes.
Yep.
Likely so.
Likely.
Lots of American Bandstand. All in the family, whatever you want to pick out. All right. And then last picture. Was trying to figure this out. Oh, this doesn't look good. This looks like, what is going on
This
here?
This is another be glad it didn't happen to you picture. So the tower was comprised of pipe leg. Instead of being solid, it was a big pipe.
Right.
Evidently, moisture, something got in there, but it ruptured, it cracked. And so if you look above this scabbed weld, you can see some of that fissure on the leg itself.
Yeah.
So we put an exo pipe over it and then all that plug welding to marry it together.
Yeah. Oh, that still doesn't look great.
The tower from coming down.
Yeah, this is more of an emergency maintenance.
Gotcha. Wow.
So all those holes were filled up with weld.
Okay. So this is in the middle of it. This isn't the finished fix.
Yes.
This is being fixed.
No, not the finished fix.
Okay.
But it shows how much welding we had to put into that to make sure that the pipe was married to the scab that we put onto it.
Goodness, I have learned a lot. Even though we're kind of out of time, Karen and Ron, would you tell us a little bit about your company and how it is that you where you do work and the kind of work that you do?
Yes, appreciate that. Precision Communications. We're located here in Grove, and we work all over the United States. We've been to Puerto Rico, to the Marshall Islands, to Hawaii, to Alaska. We prefer staying in the States, but most of our work is anywhere up to the north, the northeast, south, and southeast. So we don't get out west a whole lot, just because it's impractical with travel costs and things. But we do a full range of services, anywhere from the maintenance of upkeep from painting and greasing wires, clear up to some of the work, the very specialized work that you saw in today's videos.
Wow. And you guys have been in business, you said 28 years, Karen, was that right?
Yeah, 28 years, yes.
And I'm going to state the obvious. You have to keep up with all of the OSHA regulations and the safety regulations and the training that goes on to keep your workers and your customers safe, right?
Yes, yeah. There's a lot that goes into that, and we, our foremans are really good. We literally do our daily meetings, and we always, the safety meetings are always surrounds what we're doing for that day, and going back through, what things we need to watch out for, and how do we, perform the utmost safety in today's work. So we have great company meetings continually. We have them annually here to get them recertified with the CPR, first aid, OSHA 10-hour, climbing certification, rescue tower training. So there's a lot that goes into this, and safety has to be a part of the culture. It's just not something, you have to have everyone as a team working hard towards safety every day.
Folks, we are talking to Karen Kyman and Ron Scalfani, sorry. And I'm Kirk Harnack, and Chris Scherer is here. Chris, I've been talking most of the time here. I wonder if you had any questions or anything that you wanted to get in before we finish the show.
Well, no, I think Karen and Ron did a great job as far as bringing us a lot of not only fantastic video and photos, but just some good background information. A lot of our broadcast engineers with the Society of Broadcast Engineers, we do studio work, we do remote work. We go to the tower base. We don't get to go up. A few of us ever go up. I have climbed to about 500 feet, but it was a smokestack, not an actual tower. That's another story and another time. I don't know why I did it, but I did. I was young and foolish. Now I'm just foolish. But I thank you too, as well, very much so for the great information. And I guess I do have one question. When they're riding the personnel pan to the top, you said they have to provide their own music. Do they hum "Girl from Ipanema" very often? Do you know? Is that a favorite chant?
I tell you,
choice.
Tower hens have some of the best fascinating stories you've ever heard.
Oh, I know. I've talked to some of them.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Well, their careers are full of ups and downs. So,
yeah. We absolutely really appreciate this opportunity, Kirk and Chris, to share with some of what we do. It's so specialized type of work, and so it's a privilege to get to be on the show today.
Well, if you want to talk to Karen or Ron or anybody there about getting something scheduled in, their website is pcitower.com. Did I get that right? pcitower.com?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. And they're in beautiful Grove, Oklahoma, which is right next to a lake. They'll take you water skiing, I'm sure.
There we go.
Come on down.
All right. Karen and Ron, thank you so much for being, and thanks for also for your colleague Sean for helping us get all set up, and for all the pictures too. You got great tower climbers, and I'm glad they carry cameras or phones with them, because they've done a great job with some of those pictures. We really appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chris, that about wraps this one up. It's been a long episode, but a really good one.
Yes, it has been. And again, thanks for everybody for watching today's SBE Webxtra. I'll throw in my thanks to Karen and Ron as well for joining us today. As Kirk said, they're from Precision Communications. And just to wrap it up, this episode will be available on demand on the SBE YouTube channel. Look for it probably sometime tomorrow. And by watching this webcast, you earned 1/2 of an SBE recertification point when you recertify. We thank our sponsor, Wheatstone, for supporting the SBE Webxtra. Watch for the announcement of our next episode. The chapter of the web, the SBE Webxtra, comes to you next month. On behalf of Kirk, I'm Chris Scherer, the SBE Member Communications Director. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next month.